Hello from SelectUSA 2023 in Washington, D.C. I'm very glad to be joined by Michael Suess, the Executive Chairman of Oerlikon. Now, Michael, we've had a push towards decoupling of the US and China, lots of geopolitical tensions in recent years. Also, a lot of companies looking towards friendshoring. I wonder if you could just reflect on these developments in terms of investment strategy and geopolitics.
So first and above all, we cannot ignore that China is an economic power, and the world would not be that rich without the 35 years of Chinese development. That's why we cannot stop that. We have to deal, to talk, and to trade each other, and we have not to be naive. So to reduce dependency is one good thing, but to deal further on means that we not drift abroad, but we stay together. And that's really very important, that we don't decouple and formulate a new Western world and a nation world.
So is there also a risk, this push towards friendshoring, where you have a concentration of production in China, they can do things more cheaply? Maybe this is going to be exacerbating inflationary pressures.
I wouldn't say not really, because a lot of things you want to have more local for local. This is a lessons learned out of COVID already and out of trade discussions before COVID. And we will do that, but we will still, as Oerlikon, we are a truly global company, have 102 nationalities working for us, operating in almost 40 countries in the world. We are for open sky policy, but not a naive behavior. And then you have to always to consider, if something happens, how you can separate that from the rest and to protect the rest.
We're sat in the US, where there's been huge subsidy packages announced in recent years, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act. Also, there's state aid returning in Europe. I wonder if you can just reflect on what this return of state aid means for your global investment strategy.
I think it's a huge threat for Europe, because European Commission actually doesn't sound very attractive for industrial investments. That is somehow, if I may say, naive what they formulate, because there are contradictions in. US is much clearer on that. They put the money on the table, and that means a lot of European companies have a tendency actually to prefer investments in US, because that's a free trade zone, that's a free market, it's a free democracy. Why not to be here, as we?
So you are much more focused on the US, North America than elsewhere?
We are actually, US is our smallest market from the three hemispheres. We have a big position in Asia, we have a strong position in Europe, but our growth story will be in the US.
And finally, you mentioned democracy there. We've seen a threat to democracy in many countries around the world. Is this something you're concerned about when you look at your global operations?
Absolutely, not only from our operations, but as well as a citizen on this planet. Because there is maybe a billion two who are really living in democracies. And there are 7 billion people not living in something we would consider as a democracy. But we cannot be that ignorant that saying all these 7 billion we ignore and we treat only ourselves and deal with us. We have to be a good example, and actually Western democracies not always are good examples. And we have to, this is simply to reinvent what does democracy really means, to be the role model again for others to follow us. And this actually, with pressure and sanction, all that stuff, you will not achieve. You need a certain social environment, you need a certain education until the democracy can work. And in between there will be other systems, and we have to accept that. We should not depend on them, we should not ignore that, but we have to accept that other nations have a different model than we have.
Sure. Well, Michael Suess, thank you very much.